It's Katie Bradford Osborne. I am the curator and founder of Roaring Artist Gallery. We are a fully virtual gallery that exhibits the work of visionary women artists. And we are currently here for number 3 of our series of artist talks for our Hope exhibition. And I'm very excited to hear from these artists today. They have some beautiful work, and I'm really looking forward to hearing about the interesting ideas behind their work. All right, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to take a super quick tour through the exhibition just to see these artists' work, and then we will. I'll start introducing you to our 3 artists. All right, here we are in our Hope exhibition. Our Hope exhibition will be running in our 3D gallery up until October 31st, 2021. So if it is before then that you are seeing this, then make sure that you go and have a peek at it. If it's after then, there will be a little run through tour on YouTube that you can go and check out. Right. Here's our piece by Kendra, Baby Blues. Kendra, this one totally hit me in the I'm a mom also, and I absolutely love the power in this, so I cannot wait to hear what you're doing with this. And right next to Kendra's piece, we have one of Inge's pieces that we have in the exhibit. Looks such beautiful mark making. I think both Inge's other piece is right here. Forgotten Landscapes. Over on the other side of this wall is where we're headed. We are Melissa's piece, Family Ties That Bind Us. I will tell you, Melissa, looking at this piece, I probably saw it 3 times before I realized that it was not like a photograph. I am so excited to hear what you're doing with this. I think it's going to be a really cool story. All right. Okay. Stop sharing, and then we are going to be hearing from Kendra De La Moriniere, Inge Flinte, and Melissa Bolger. But first, we're going to be hearing from Kendra. So I will read your introduction, Kendra, and then I'll hand it over to you. All right. Kendra De La Moriniere is an internationally exhibited artist who now lives in Los Angeles. Her work focuses primarily on sociological topics and issues, both exploring in earnest and satirizing her subject matter. She recently received her MFA from California Institute of the Arts and is currently analyzing the myths and misconceptions around motherhood, how in love and blissful it is supposed to be, and how you're supposed to experience these magical feelings and bonds when that does not happen for everyone. All right, Kendra, you should be able to screen share, and I will hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. So I'm just sharing my recent thesis, which one of these was the pieces in the show. I got pregnant at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was pregnancy in general was not what I expected at all. I was very, very sick. So that already was kind of one myth burst for me. And I couldn't really make work until after I had my baby, and I had expected all of these amazing feelings that everyone had promised me, this euphoria and this bond and falling in love. And when I didn't have that, I felt terrible and really guilty. And I also had postpartum depression for a while. And the more I kind of thought about it, the more I realized that there are a lot of other people that feel this way, and it doesn't necessarily always have to, you don't have to always pretend that it's wonderful. And so I was quite inspired, sorry about the dogs barking, quite inspired by Woman House and other artists like Ellen McKeown, and of course, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on her name, who did postpartum projects, Mary Kelly, and Mike Kelly as well, actually, who are totally opposite. But so these were installed in my daughter's unfinished nursery at the time. And they say, do you love being a mom? How's breastfeeding going? Are you in love? No, I'm fucking depressed. Do you feel complete? Are you fulfilled? Did you find your purpose? No, I feel fucking lost. And the inspiration for these came from everyone asking these questions all the time, and people still do. And if you have a child, I'm sure you've been asked a lot of these questions as well. And so I kind of started playing around with small felt pieces and kids' crafts, and that's kind of how these came to be. So there's other shots of them in the nursery. And then I also made this play mat. So obviously you can see it's a play on the like A is for Apple type thing. So I did my best to kind of use these letters for how I felt and what they represented for me going through all of this. So, you know, having like Zoloft on there was really important for me because that really saved me. And so, yeah, I just wanted a kind of more honest depiction of the playmat, and my daughter plays on it as well. She played on it in another show that I had. So I kind of liked the idea of it being interactive. So there's part of the nursery, how it was. And there's another part with the wall that we painted. We started painting before she was born and then just never really finished it. I mean, now it's finished, but for a very, very long time. And since we couldn't have our thesis in person this year, I decided to turn the nursery into a gallery. Oh, this might have supposed to have been a video. Oh, weird. Sorry. I might just go to, I'm gonna go to my website really quick. I don't know what happened there. So here's a video piece that I made. And this was made with Jolly Ranchers. So I won't play it in full, but since I was very sick, it kind of, the idea was trying to like eat joy back in my mouth. It was kind of like eating glass. It also made me quite sick because it was Jolly Ranchers. Fast forward through it a bit. if you get that one. So I ended up eating the whole thing, and yeah, I was quite sick afterwards. And then I don't know what happened to my presentation. Sorry. Oh, so these were kind of smaller versions of other things. So this one, some more questions. Was meeting your baby so magical? Did you have an instant bond? No, I puked on the floor, which, like I said before, I was really sick. Sorry, those dogs are very loud. And the other one's kind of a take on when they ask you about postpartum depression. It's, you know, they don't really help you that much. So yeah, that's kind of the basis of my thesis, I guess. It's a kind of a quick rundown. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Kendra. That is such a powerful body of work. Does anybody have any questions? Well, I think it was amazing and wonderful of you to share, and brave to share this particular time in your life in the way that you have. And I love the way that you have interpreted it. I'm so excited to be able to see more from this body of work. And I don't know how you did that with the Jolly Rancher. It sounds like your pregnancy and early baby experience mine was kind of similar to what sounds like what you had. And I thank you for doing this work, because I think that there's a lot of women who are like us, who have a very similar kind of experience. And it is so powerful to be able to see it in this way. And I love how you've turned that the childhood craft concept sort of on its head with this. So
well, thank you for letting me speak. Sorry, it was kind of rushed, and I don't going crazy behind me.
It's okay.
Can I ask a question for Kendra? I'd love to know where do you feel like this work is gonna, what direction do you think you're gonna take it in now?
I'm still kind of, I'm enjoying working with text and kind of the like myths and misconceptions around motherhood as well, and like crafting. I think crafting is an interesting road to go down. So I just got a tufting gun, so I might start using that. And just generally kind of looking at other things, like the fact that there's no changing tables in men's bathrooms and things like that. So I'll probably try and continue on this road until I feel like I've exhausted it. But also, you know, as the baby grows and stuff, there are new challenges and new kind of bubbles that get popped. So I'm sure, I don't know what I'll do next exactly, but I am really enjoying using kind of like children's craft toys and stuff as well. And other things like I was going to start baking some cakes with some text on it, and like jelly cakes in the shape of like boobs and things like that, just to see kind of some comical side of it, I guess, as I'm weaning my child. So I just hope to make stuff that's relatable, because I know I felt very alone with a lot of things that I have gone through and I'm going through, and it's so common. So I really hope that, you know, people can relate to it, even if they don't have a baby. In some ways, it's okay to feel like guilty and not feel like you're doing things the right way, because there really isn't a right way. Yeah.
I'm excited to see what you do. Kirsten in the chat just said, thank you so much for pulling the veils back from the myths around new motherhood. Important, brave, real, and important to connect and break out of the isolation of that lonely period. I think you're right. I think it is so many more women than we realize, because it's not something that we're supposed to talk about necessarily. It's supposed to be that magical time and so fleeting, and you need to hold on to it. But It was hard. It was.
Yeah, it's hard. And if you don't, and there's a lot of guilt, I think, that comes with the fact if you don't feel like when they first come out, if you don't feel like this thing that everyone talks about, you feel like you're this terrible person. And that's,
Mhm.
that doesn't happen right away for everyone.
Yes, absolutely. How old is your baby now?
She is almost 11 months. I'm enjoying her more and more each day.
Yes. Yeah, my daughter just turned 12
Oh, yeah.
Saturday. So I'm a little
Wow.
removed from that time period now.
A whole different set of,
It gets,
challenges.
it does. It gets more challenging and then better and then more and then better. And I think that that's
Yeah.
probably the way that it is into infinity with being a parent.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Kendra? All right, well, we will move forward. But Kendra, thank you so much again for sharing with us.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me talk about my work.
All right. Next up, we have Inge Flinte. Inge Flinte is a painter and photographer based in Brisbane, Australia, with her husband and 3 children. She has lived in 5 different countries and is the daughter of immigrant parents from opposite ends of the world. As a consequence, her work is often centered around and plays with the idea of home. Inge received her MFA in 2009 and works predominantly as an abstract painter and photographer, exploring alternative photographic processes. Inge's desire to make art comes from both a love of creating as well as a conviction that as a maker, art is a tool that helps our unconscious minds process our complicated lives. And as a viewer, art has the ability to transform spaces, to make us feel more at home and more at rest. Inge's photographic work explores concepts of home and the everyday and continues to explore the constant displacement that she experiences from her collective homes. She seeks to capture moments of interaction, both past and present, through a process that she refers to as note-taking. All right, Inge, I will pass it over to you. If you want to share screen, and then we can add in your phone whenever you're ready.
Okay, hang on. Nope, are you seeing this or am I?
I see you. I don't
Are you
see.
seeing me? It's giving me a whole lot of options, and I'm like, which one do I choose?
Oh, here we go. I can
Is that
see.
working? Yay. Yeah. Okay, so I'll just give you a little backstory. So I finished my MFA in 2009 and I had a little bit of it. I did it in photography, and I had a little bit of a, not break, but I was raising my young children. And in about 2015, I kind of stumbled upon like a random, Instagram post, as you do, talking about the 100-day project. And, I found post art school, I did a lot of thinking, like I would think about what I wanted a work to look like, but it never actually eventuated, out of my brain. So on a whim, like overnight, I started the project, and I'll just move to the next slide. And so this is from my 100-day project in 2018. And basically, like I love these projects just for doing something every day. And for this particular project, I was really, I was kind of blending kind of 2 of my big influences, and one of them was my daughter, who at the time, I think she might have been 2 or 3, she just loved pink and peach and purple. And so I just, okay, I'm going to use those colors. And the other one was Cy Twombly, because I love his mark making. And so this was really a project about creating a vocabulary of marks. Yeah, and so I'm heavily, like, in terms of inspiration, I'm heavily inspired by the everyday world. And as Katie said, that I like to, like, my studio practice kind of revolves around taking notes. So, and that at the moment takes the form of like taking photos of things that interest me on my everyday, and just bringing them back in my studio. And somehow they just, little elements of them creep into my work, especially in my abstract pieces. And as well, in the intro, like we talked at, displacement in home is another overarching idea. So, and we've lived in so many different places for like most of my adult life. Every 2 to 3 years with moving. So like I'm always in some kind of state of displacement. So to again take these outside elements and then bring them into and further displace them into work kind of parallels my life at the moment. So, and I'm also, this is one of my big inspirations. This is like the New Zealand bush, and so I always feel really at home. So it's a big element. I do a lot of different things, and so this is one that pops up all the time because it has that feeling of home. And here we go. So we got the next slide, so you can see. And also I wanted to talk a little bit about my sketchbook. I'm sorry, I've got all these notes that I have like numbered and named, and now I'm completely lost in them. So I also have a sketchbook practice that I try to I feel like it's a great free place because there's no pressure, there's no sales, it's just playing, and you don't have to show anyone if you don't want to, despite the fact I'm showing it to you now. So it's a great, it's kind of part of what I've learned in the 100-day project, just to keep practicing and keep working and keep pushing and see where things take you. And I think I also wanted to talk a little bit about my process in terms of Procreate. And when I feel stuck in a real life painting, I like to take a photo of it and then I just take it onto a Procreate. And it's great because everything becomes small and it's easy just to scribble over and see, does this work? Does this not work? And stuff like that. So these are my pieces. I have a few pieces that are really inspired by the kind of forest picture I just showed you previously. And this is another one of them. And another one of them is I went on a trip to my mum's from Japan, so sometimes we'll go and visit. And on one of my trips, I got obsessed because we were traveling on the train a lot, and I just literally stared out the train looking at these mountainscapes, and they're like virtually untouched. If you go through Japan, there are big city centers, but like the countryside, there's just a lot of countryside and with no one there. And, you know, they're talking about like the gods, the gods live in the mountains. So they kind of feel like they're still untouched because humans don't, go and live with gods. So I got obsessed with mountains and I just had to paint them all the time. So this is another part of my practice. And so this is another part, coming back to the colourful abstracts, and they're an extension of the mark making shapes that I take from the natural world, but like in an abstracted form. So this is the most kind of intuitive part of my work. I don't know often where the final result will be. I just know kind of the path to get there. And so I've got, for example, like I lived in Brisbane. I'm living in California at the moment, but my move previous to this was Brisbane, and I was like, one of the standard features of everyday life was like literally the bright blue sky and the lush green kind of tropical plants, and I just became obsessed with kind of that blue sky. So I just kind of try and like include it if I wanted to, because it was literally every day you look up and it's bright blue sky and palm fronds, and so that's kind of part of how I bring in the everyday life every day into my work. So and the final part of like this little thing that I've stuck together is like collaborations I have with one of my galleries. So she gives all the creatives and artists prompts, and we just go with whatever we feel like that's going to take us. So I sometimes find it's hard to kind of jump when I'm told to jump, but it's a really nice way of kind of pushing myself out of my comfort zone and just doing something that just having to completely rethink things and rely on like the process to to bring a result, I suppose. So yeah, and that's I don't know how I'm going to get this one. Yeah, and that's the end of my little thing in my jig. So.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. You have beautiful mark making. I absolutely love what you were saying about the 100-day project. And it sounds like you moved from that into your sketchbook.
Yeah, well, I did. I've done the project I've done it every year since 2015. So I try and make a point of doing it, because I feel like, and I haven't done it very properly in the last couple of years. Like the last project of mark making, that was in 2019 or something, or 2018. That was when I really had a very tight, focused project. But the other projects, I've just kind of gone 100 days of doing what I can, and I feel like I've kind of wandered a little bit more. And sometimes I have to wander because I do have other deadlines, but it's been really nice. I feel like it's just, I think a lot of people go, well, how am I meant to get better? And it's just like, well, you just have to do it over and over and over and over again. You just have to keep practicing. And I think that's the magical thing about making art, is that you can, if you just press play every day, it just happens and it starts to build and grow, and it's really cool.
That's awesome. That is so inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing about that. Does anyone have any questions for Inge?
Do you use different kinds of mediums and paints, or because I noticed some paints looked different than others? Do you have like a primary one you like?
It just depends on the particular project I'm doing, or the particular work I'm working on. So if I just flick back to screen sharing for a second, if I can figure that out, which maybe I can't right now. Hang on a second. So within, I think maybe you were talking about these ones, like, so within these pieces, like when I was in Japan, there's this great store in Tokyo called Pigment, and it's just literally glass walls full of just pigment. And so I was like, oh my goodness. And so I just bought a lot, and I didn't really know what I was doing, because and I work with it in a really odd way. Usually with pigment, you'll add it to a binder to make an acrylic or an oil or something like that. But I ended up just using water to first get that kind of effect. And these kind of gray things you can see in the mountain, that it's like a glass. It's a pigment made out of glass, so it doesn't ever dissolve, but it leaves this beautiful texture. So I kind of got, that was part of it. Like, I went to Japan, I went to this great art store, and I picked up like some great, great new things to play with. And then juxtaposed with like traveling through the countryside and getting obsessed with the mountains. And so that's they kind of went hand in hand. So this is kind of pigment and acrylic. Whereas a lot of my more abstract works are acrylic and oil pastel. I do have an obsession with oil pastel. It's great for mark making, and especially like you can get I think Caran d'Ache, like you can get this watercolor crayon, and it has this really sharp mark. I don't know, I feel like maybe I should pencil sharpen my like pastels or something, just to get that really nice thin pop of color. Anyway, that's just me.
That's really nice. Thank you.
Okay, and
that is really awesome. I really want to go to that shop now.
It is. It's amazing. So cool. Literally, yeah.
Do we have any other questions? Inge, thank you so much for sharing with us. I love seeing how you are inspired by your mediums, and also I've tried to do the 100-day project before, and I don't think I've made it through an entire 100 days. So the fact that you're doing that I'm so impressed and inspired by that. So
I think I'm just stubborn. It's not like, it's just that I'm incredibly stubborn. That's all.
Well, it seems to be working for you, so don't stop that. I think it's great. All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, then I'm going to read Melissa's bio. All right. Thank you again, Inge. All right. Melissa Bolger. Melissa Louise Bolger is a California native and was raised in Whiskeytown Lake near Redding, California, where her parents settled on a remote piece of property, built a house, and raised their family off the grid. Her mother sewed the family's clothes and other household items like the Afghan that is at the heart of Bolger's current art practice. Some of her early artistic influences grew from those days, living off a dirt road overlooking a canyon and creek, when do-it-yourself was the only way to get things done. Today, she merges the techniques of craft with fine art in her interpretive portraits, paintings, and drawings. Melissa uses paint, colored pencil, and graphite to render the details of objects that have deep meaning in our lives and relationships. Her work has been exhibited in solo and group shows across the San Francisco Bay Area and venues that include Root Division, Oakland Museum of California, and the Marin Museum of Contemporary Art, as well as several juried shows, both online and in gallery spaces. Her work has been reviewed in publications that include the Contra Costa Times and the East Bay Express. She earned her Bachelor of Fine Arts at California College of the Arts in San Francisco, where she focused on painting and drawing. Bolger lives and works in Oakland, California. All right, Melissa, I'm going to hand it over to you, and you should be able to screen share.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you so much for inviting me to this. And let me see if I can figure this out. Okay. Great. Can you guys see that? Are we good to go here? Great.
I think so.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie, again, and thank you to the jurors, Marissa and Heather, for accepting my piece into this show. I'm gonna just go over what inspired this series of work and then show you a bunch of slides of the process and talk a little bit further about the work through the images. So this is where it all began with this. This is a crocheted blanket that my mother made. My mother's name is Carolyn Marie. She was tragically killed at 39. In the back of my mind, I had always wanted to do a portrait of her, but I didn't want to do a literal portrait. And so finally, 20 plus years later, and after the birth of my son, I felt like I gave myself permission to really process her, to talk about her, to talk about what happened, and to memorialize her through art. So this series is all dedicated to her. And I just wondered, like, how could I connect with her as a daughter and with her ghost? During my postpartum blues, like Kendra, I definitely can relate. I was nursing my child and I was laying on this blanket and like a light bulb just went off. I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is like what I need to do to draw her. And so I just got to work. I didn't know how I was going to draw it because the way I draw, this would have taken me a lifetime to do. So I went to my siblings, which is where I go often for inspiration. They help me kind of stay with the project in a way. So these are all the squares that are in the Afghan, and I just had them choose their favorite color out of the piece. And then that's kind of where I started. So this is the first piece of the series. This is called A Piece of Her in Blue. And this is 30 by 22. This piece was finished started and finished in 2019 is kind of where the whole project started. So this is basically a photo of the piece. This is the original color, but it was just too muted for me. So I, messed with it in Photoshop, just up the contrast. I wanted something more punchy, more lively for the series. So it starts with a projection. I project the image. I wanted this to be bigger than life size. I actually wish they were twice as big, but it would just be crazy to do that. So I tape it off and start drawing the image. You can see the drawing is somewhat detailed, but not really. Here's a close-up of nice detail shot of the inside of the blanket. So see, you can see here, like, I don't know, colored pencil is tricky. I've never actually drawn in colored pencil. This was my first time. I usually just draw in graphite. I've painted in the past. That's what I went to school for, but painting is messy and you need a place to paint. And I didn't really have that. So I just always drew. And, but then, this blanket was colorful. I had to do color. So I dived into colored pencil. These are, I use Prismacolor, not the greatest quality of pencils. They tend to break a lot and they're really waxy. So you'll see in future slides that how waxy they are. But here's basically kind of like an overview of the drawing. And this was submitted to the MFA Never Show, which it was accepted. And sadly, it got into the gallery, but the opening was canceled because of COVID and the whole city shut down. And this piece lived in the gallery for like 3 months until I could pick it up. It was really sad, but at least I got a photo of it. But then I submitted it. It got into the Sanchez Art Center 2020. And this is at O'Hanlon by jury by Jen Tuff, which was fun. This is the next piece that was finished, completed. This is a piece of her in monochrome. This is 36 by 36 inches on paper, graphite on paper. And I chose graphite as just a beautiful metaphor for time passing and for the loss of life. As time passes, we lose our memories and they begin to fade away, like the color in this blanket will eventually fade away. Nothing is permanent. And it's funny, like I just heard that in the Frozen, I was watching Frozen with my son. And, when that scene where Olaf is like disappearing, he's like losing his snow. And he says, I just realized nothing is permanent, but only love. And I was just like, oh my God, that's totally it, because like we keep, love doesn't fade away. Like it always stays with us. And so I realized, 20 plus years that I had never really devoted a space for my mom. And, we quickly want to forget death in this culture, and which is what I did. So this is definitely a celebration of her, a celebration of a part of her life through craft, something that she did that probably, women don't get recognized for this kind of thing ever. And just honoring that craft in a whole different way. So that's the picture of the piece, or the photograph of what I was drawing from. So this is the start of the drawing. I didn't tape this piece down. I just put paper all around it. As you can see, like it's a lot of work goes into just starting the piece. And that was the beginning of 158 hours went into this piece. I keep track of my work just so I can see, how much work I put into this. This is it's a beautiful job that we as artists dedicate our life to. And it's good to know, like, you know, all those hours, what they're worth. This is just a detail shot of my drawing. A lot of these images I just took off of Instagram. So you could go to my Instagram handle, my name, Melissa Bolger, and see all this stuff. But lots of tiny, tiny little marks. See that this is, you know, you can't see this in the actual photograph, all these like little eraser marks and the details in it. This is a scale shot just to give you a sense of scale. Here's another nice little close-up. Another scale shot, almost finished. So, again, just showing you the mark making. And then this is constantly what I'm doing. I'm constantly sharpening my pencil at all times. You just have to. You have to, if you're going to get a crisp, you know, drawing, it has to be, your pencil has to be sharpened. Here's another piece. Here's me in my studio with my eyes. I have a very dark and dingy studio. I have no real lights, no heaters, just like this old garage I converted into my studio, but kind of probably bad for my eyes. There's the piece. And as you can see, graphite has that shine to it. I just wanted to include that just because it's so hard to photograph graphite drawings. It really is. Here's the final piece. So this is a piece of her in green. And this is my brother, for my brother Timmy. This is 20 by 20. And this was completed in 2020. Let's see. So it's funny because this piece I started before monochrome, but I stopped working on it because I didn't like the colored pencil, and I just wasn't into it, and I wanted to just go back to the graphite. And in a way, it was like, I'm so glad I did that, because when I was doing the graphite, it was like my way to communicate with her. I felt like, yes, this is how I connect with my mom through the graphite. But with the color, all my siblings had chosen a color, so there was no like backing out. I had to like finish the piece through doing the color. So I'm glad I did it. I learned a lot about color pencil. And yes, I collect my nibs because they're just so pretty. So I collect all my nibs, all my colored pencils. Here's a desk top shot. And just, you know, a lot of colored pencils go into just doing like one chain of color. And one of these chains, one of the knots, it takes about an hour to do. They're very time consuming, and maybe I could get two if I was focused enough, but sometimes you just don't want to rush it. You just want to, like, this is a very meditative process. It's a very slow process. And you just, you know, it definitely was my time to like reflect, go back to the past. It was like kind of like a portal in a way to my past and to my familyhood, my childhood memories. So this is like kind of this burnishing pencil that comes with the Prismacolor. It kind of blends the colored pencil into the paper, which I like, but it kind of blurs the detail. So I love it and I hate it, but the paper was so thick that I had to use it to get into the cracks of the paper. Another time lapse. I don't have too many of these, so just bear with me on this. You know, and again, you know, choosing this blanket to draw was such a great point of reference to really unlock those early memories and to just find a new bond with my mom. Even though that she's gone, it like kind of brought her back to life in this way, in this really beautiful way. And also like my siblings and I, it just it made me really appreciate and be grateful for my family. And this is the great reveal that is always very satisfying at the end of a drawing. There's the piece. And this is a piece of her in pink. This is for my sister Megan. This is 16 by 16, 2020, done in 2020. Here's the original square. It's pretty much the same, except as you can see, it's just upped in contrast. There's a detail shot. I mean, they look like paintings, you know, they're like paintings in colored pencil up close. And this piece was in the Sanchez Left Coast annual juried. There's me and my son Jerry. Both two pieces got into that show, and luckily we were able to go. It was really awesome to finally go to an art show and have an opening. And this piece here, like they had a floral artist come in and choose art that they were inspired by to make these artistic bouquets, and that's what that's there for. And then we have a piece for in orange, and this is for my brother Stephen. And this is 23 by 23. And here's, you can see the difference in this. I definitely did not want those colors, so I did switch it up quite a bit to make it way more fiery. My brother is very fiery, so it was like it was perfect to represent him in that way. So here's that burnishing thing I was telling you about. The wax kind of just like loses its luster, and so I had to polish it with, you know, the burnishing tool that printmakers use. So I went in and burnished this whole piece just so it could like look shiny again, because the wax is just so waxy. They're like wax drawings. You could like take your finger and just scratch it and you could see the markings. And then this piece, so I just included this piece because it was something that I did. This is a terrible photo, but this is like typical COVID morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, because when COVID hit, the whole, you know, everything shut down and I had to keep my kid home and I couldn't work and I just had to take care of him. And 4 o'clock, getting up at 4 in the morning was the only way that I could work in my studio. So this is me cutting out a granny square on Tyvek. And I just had a bunch of Tyvek and I just had this image of this cutout granny square. I wanted to see what it looked like. I have some ideas for it. I'm not exactly sure where I'm going with it, because I don't really like the Tyvek print on the back of it. it kind of just hangs in my studio as a curtain right now. I love how the wind kind of just like takes it up and takes it away. And then we come to the piece in the show, Family Ties That Bind Us. So obviously this is all of our colors, and I taught myself how to crochet and just got some yarn from the thrift and just crocheted all of our colors together. And it just seemed like the next piece to do. You know, I kind of thought about like, oh, you know, like as I was doing the piece, I was thinking, oh, what is this something like, I wonder if mom would have, you know, if she was still here, would she have like done like amazing crochet blankets with like, you know, personalizing us in some way. So it was my way to just bring all of our siblings together, but in her way of crafting, of her way of crocheting. Like I don't do crochet. I wish I had time to do crochet. I love it, but I just, drawing is my hobby, or not hobby, job. So this piece I did a little differently. I went in with watercolor as like a base, just to kind of move the drawing along a little bit faster, which it did help, but I only really used the watercolor on these two colors. But then I went in with white watercolor on the tops just to make them pop, which actually I really liked. There is me with my Optivisor. And that's basically where I sat on my table. That's my view. It's just that and my computer and my desk light that I have. Another water, just putting it, I did the watercolor for all the black though. Green. As you can see, very slow process, very tedious, very meditative. These are the colors for the mauve, we call it. So if there was a color in the blanket that I would have chosen, that was the color. I didn't want to do white. I actually did crochet a square with white in it, and it just didn't look right. So I decided to choose a color. And just, you know, there's just so much layering that goes into the colored pencil, over and over and over, trying to blend it into the paper. There's my pencils. And then this one, I did an actual shadow just to make it look more realistic, kind of pop off the paper. And that was done in watercolor. So that got painted in last. And it's interesting. Some people like it and some people don't. There are some people that just did not like the shadow, but I love it. So. And here is a close-up of the whole piece. So this was my way of just giving something back to my mother, honoring her, and creating something completely new from an old object. I like that idea. And then this is something that I'm working on now. One of the things I'm working on. I'm photographing objects that people hold dear to them, that they feel connects them to their special person who's died. I want to connect more with the community who is interested in paying homage to the people that they love and who have moved on from this earth. So this man I met through the newspaper, actually. he lost his brother to murder about 40 plus years ago. And this is all he has of his brother, and he still rides it today because it reminds him of his brother. So that's where I'm starting with this project. And that is it. Thank you. Stop sharing now. Any questions?
I mean, I just think that was amazing and has so many layers to it, and I'm just in awe. And yeah, I just think that's really incredible work. Also, I have someone that's working on something similar to your very last one about the objects.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever wanted to connect with someone,
yeah, for sure.
A lot of his mother's clothes and stuff that she recently passed. So I would, if you ever need someone, I would love to connect you guys. But yeah, wow. I mean, that's amazing work.
Thank you, Kendra, and yours is too, by the way, and yours, Inge, as well.
I just wanted to say, I'm just absolutely in awe of what you've done, and what a beautiful way to like memorialize your mum, and to just work through that grief as well, that I'm sure just never it's and just the level of detail, it just, I think that in and of itself just shows how much just love, you know, like went into it. It was amazing.
Thank you appreciate that.
I loved that you chose to use her work or her craft to create a portrait of her. I think that's such a beautiful concept, and these are beautiful pieces, Melissa. They're just so impressive. I wish I had that kind of attention span, and the fact that you have been able to create something so beautiful and impressive, and you can see your heart in it, and I just love it.
Thank you. I didn't really think that the project would even make it this far. It's kind of, who would draw crochet? Who would be so crazy enough to draw crochet? But I think it was that connection that I had with my mom and my family that kept the work going. So yeah.
Well, it memorializes it in such a beautiful way. It's just beautiful. I love what you're doing. I love the way that you're expanding now into these objects. That's
Thank you.
Yeah. I want to get in touch with you actually after because I lost my father back.
Oh, really?
Maybe 2008. So quite a few years ago now, but
it always feels recent. And the time just like, there's no concept of time really. And with death, it's just always like,
it's always kind of surprising. You still have those moments where it's kind of shocking that they're not there. And it's very, it's an odd feeling. And it never really completely goes away in that type of thing, especially when people are taken from you too early.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
But what you're doing is really beautiful, and it was really touching.
Thank you for asking me to be part of this. I was really excited to talk about this series.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions for Melissa? Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
Inge, I realized that we had forgotten. Do you want to do the other thing or no? No, okay. I'm so sorry. I completely just slipped right out of my mind. But thank all three of you so much for being here today. Thank you for sharing more about your art and about yourselves. You're all doing such beautiful, amazing work. And I know, Kendra, it's kind of odd to get to, I think beautiful is a weird word to use for your work, but it is in some really, it's a beautiful take on this kind of emotion that is such a important thing. And so I'm still going to use it. You still get to use it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you giving me the space to talk about it.
Well, thank you all for doing this, and thank everyone who has joined us today and who will join us later on to support these artists and to see this. It'll be posted to YouTube here in the next few days. And so you'll be able to share it with anyone who wasn't able to see it. But if you are viewing this before October 31st, 2021, you can come and see the Hope exhibit, and you can see these pieces from these awesome artists. And if not, I hope that you will follow them on Instagram and continue to support them. They're doing wonderful things. Well, thank you all for being here. And once again, this is Katie Bradford Osborne from Roaring Artist Gallery, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Bye.